Hello, good morning, good evening, good lunchtime, whatever it is, wherever you are. Welcome to sunny Edinburgh, where it actually is sunny for once. And I've got a bit of hay fever as a result of that, so you'll have to excuse me if I'm sort of snuffling my way through the conversation. But it really is good morning, good evening, good lunchtime today, because we're here at lunchtime in sunny Edinburgh, and Neil is in sunny Portugal. And we have two guests, and for each one of our guests, in one case it's very early in the morning, and in the other case it's well gone tea time. So we're definitely covering all of the bases today. So I'm Martin McKenna, and Neil is sitting next to me, or not quite. I'm in Edinburgh, Neil's in Portugal. We, for those of you who don't know, are both IT professionals, or ex-IT professionals, or heading in that direction, who decided they'd rather do something more interesting and got into some live streaming. So now we really enjoy doing a little bit of live streaming, and we're glad to have all of our guests joining us today. We'll have a chat with you a bit later on. So we are live on the Zoom call, and we want you to interact in the Zoom chat. So please feel free to drop any questions in the chat. Every now and again we will jump into a little scene where we have your questions available to us, and we'll bring them up and put them to our guests. And Neil, perhaps you want to tell everybody where we are streaming to live as well as being on the Zoom call.
Yeah, so we're hello everybody, and thanks for joining us today. We are actually live streaming to a bunch of different places. We're live on LinkedIn, we're live on YouTube, we're live on some of our presenters' channels as well. And as Martin said, we're actually in a Zoom call right now. We're so happy that all of you have decided to join us. So keep the conversation going. I can see there's plenty of comments coming on in the chat as well, and we will be posting some of those chat messages in a moment. But today we're going to be talking about why video is your new business card. And as Martin said, we've got two wonderful presenters with us. We've got Alec Johnson and Scott Skeeble, who are joining us from two places around the world. So maybe, Martin, it's time to bring those beautiful guests on. Hello.
Hey, hello. Alec. Hey, Scott. Everybody's got beautiful coordinated backgrounds here. We're delighted that our guests are so considerate to do that for us. So, and we're going to let you just introduce yourselves. For anybody who doesn't know Alec, please introduce yourself.
My name's Alec, based in Thailand, from UK originally, but been here for 20 years. And I've got a YouTube channel, Take One Tech, and I help entrepreneurs level up their online video presence, and from that also learn how to leverage video in their business through the Digital Stage Academy.
And it's Scott, who is on mute.
You are right. The first faux pas of presenting, isn't it? Hey everybody, I'm Scott Skybell. I am a former LinkedIn senior learning consultant, and I am now entering this wonderful space with these gentlemen as we start taking a look at how we leverage video to communicate, how we leverage video to learn and make a difference, particularly on LinkedIn.
Okay, well, that's a great summary. The good news for us is that Alec will be doing a bit of presenting, and Scott will do a bit of presenting, and we can just do the question bit where we say, tell us a bit more about that, which is kind of where you want to be, people. If anyone thinks it's difficult to be an interviewer, no, we've got the easy bit. And what we'll do every now and again is just shift over a little bit, and then I get to press some buttons to bring in some comments. So let's say hello to Stefan, who's calling from Sweden. And let's say the O Show is joining us too. And can we talk to the barber about your fringe cuts? I don't think that's applying to me. I don't know if that's our two guests.
It must be for me, that one.
Alex, how are they going to tell us apart?
I don't know. And we've already got a question from Prima, who's asking us what tech we're using to go live here. So just to answer that very briefly, we are using Ecamm Live, and Ecamm Live has got an integration with Zoom, which allows us to do all the wonderful things that we're doing with moving people around on the screen and bringing up comments live and things like that. So yeah, we can do lots of different bits and pieces, and I can press a button now and again, and we can bring on a friend of Scott's by the look of things. Hey Ken, how are you doing? And we've got Dr. Sunny joining us all the way from Mississippi. So you must be up early in the morning as well. So congratulations for being up so early. And thank you very much for joining us. And what we want to do, as I previously mentioned, is to get you jumping in. Oh, thank you very much, Kathy, who's also joining us from LinkedIn. So just so as people know how this is working, we can take comments in from LinkedIn or from YouTube if you happen to be watching from one of those platforms, because we are projecting ourselves all over the world in multiple different locations. So Alex got his back-to-back restream, we call it, pairing. That's going on Alex's channel, Neil's channel, my channel on YouTube, and also all on LinkedIn as well. So those are all going, and we've got people joining us live on Zoom, and the people who are joining us live on Zoom, they are able to actually interact with what we call our Streamer Live sessions, and that allows us to ask a bunch of questions, and people in the Zoom room can then answer the questions. So let us go straight away to our first question, because Alec's going to be first up on stage in a minute. And people in the Zoom chat, you can now type in 1, 2, 3, 4 or 5 once Alec has read the question out to you. Over to you, Alec.
Thank you. Yeah, so where would you place yourself when it comes to the current video setup that you've got with your on-screen presence? So number one is I never appear on camera, basically just avoiding video at all costs, I guess. Number two would be just using your basic camera, mic and camera, basic laptop camera and mic. 3 would be upgraded a few things, maybe invested in an upgraded camera and so on. 4 is, going up a level from that, so having a good quality camera, mic, maybe investing in some lights as well. Or number 5 would be having built out a full-on studio setup. So those are the options.
So we have a variety of people coming in here. I'm sure that that most of the number 5s are me, Neil, Alec,
I
and
deliberately
Scott.
didn't drop my number in. If I drop it in, I'm going to skew them as well.
And I noticed that Saeed was asking where he can join the Zoom call. Neil, do you want to
Yeah, just
drop
mentioned it's on
that
Luma.
link?
So yeah.
Okay,
I will
so
drop
that's
the
on
link in
Luma.
there, yeah.
So interesting selection of different answers there, and we're using something called Streamer Live to drive the answers here, just in case you're wondering what that is, to jump ahead in terms of questions that people will ask. And Streamer Live allows us to convert the questions into graphics automatically directly from the platform, in this case Zoom, which is super clever. We can actually do it by grabbing stuff from multiple platforms as well, but we're not doing that today. We're just doing straight Zoom. However, I think that set us up nicely to move to Alec's first session. So I'm going to hand the digital stage to the digital stage master. Here you go, Alec.
Thank you so much. So yeah, great to be here. Great to be part of this first in this webinar series. And I know it's just going to be a really great series with lots of great information all the way through all the sessions. But for now, today, I'm talking about delivering your true value with video. And it's all about being able to show up with clarity, confidence, and flow on the digital stage. And the flow part I'll explain a little bit later on, because maybe that might not be immediately obvious. Before we get into it, though, I want to just mention I was on a consultation call. So this is kind of what I help people do day in, day out. And I was on a consultation call with a client just a couple of months ago. And it was an organization that ran weekly meetings for all of their sales team. They had 300 people on their sales team. And so they were running these weekly sort of all hands meetings, if you like, and they wanted to really look at how they could improve the quality of the way that they were delivering the information to their sales team. So they were doing things like, explaining new offers and things like that needed to be described to their potential clients, but also celebrate the wins of some of their sales force and so on. And they wanted to just really level up what they were doing in those meetings. So we got on a consultation call, and they'd sent me through an example of how they were doing things so up until that point, which was basically just a regular Zoom call with their built-in webcams, and that's why I was interested to see who's using what in terms of their setup. And I looked at what they did, and they were right. There was some room for improvement. And I basically, in 15 minutes, just walked them through a little bit of a taste of what is possible and how they could level up on all of their video in their Zoom meetings. But also, this was a sales team with 300 strong. Well, if all of those salespeople were also leveling up the way that they were communicating out of the company as well, there was this really huge opportunity there. And once I showed them, they were like immediately taken by it, and they could immediately see the possibility. And the CEO said, this is unbelievable. And he said something which really struck me, which was, I feel like we're behind the times. And the fact is, they really aren't behind the times, because everybody is more or less doing the exact same thing. Most people are, using Zoom these days, but they're not really looking in any way to sort of level up their appearance and the way that they are presenting themselves on Zoom. They're not really leveraging the possibility that video offers as a sales tool, as a way to deliver value. And so really there is then this huge opportunity. And so that's what I want to just highlight for you, is this opportunity that is open to you. You have the opportunity now to really sort of step up and elevate yourself above the masses, because most people aren't doing any of this at all, aren't really leveraging video at all. So you're not behind the times, you're exactly with the times, but we have this opportunity to leap forward. But why does it matter? Why should we do more than just, our regular webcam and microphone on Zoom? Well, ultimately, we have some value to deliver. Whatever we're doing in business, we've got a value to deliver, and that could be education. It could be you are maybe a coach, maybe you're a mentor to people, and you need to deliver that value to people. But you might be a salesperson, like this company that I was talking about, selling whatever it might be. It might be, sort of virtual products, insurance or things like that, or it could be physical products. But ultimately, we've got that value, and we need to communicate that value. So even if you are selling a physical product, you potentially need to be able to communicate that value. And if you are able to show up better on video, then you're going to do a much better job of being able to demonstrate the value that you are able to provide with clarity and maximum impact. And so really, the way that you show up on video should be a reflection of the expert that you are in your field, for example, or it should be a reflection of the quality of product that you have. Now, this whole webinar today is titled Video is the New Business Card. Well, I've said something similar for a number of years now, which is video is the new business suit. Now, the reason why I've been saying that is that why is it that people tend to wear, business attire typically? Why has it been for decades that, there is this idea of a business suit, for example? Well, it's to signal a few things. First of all, it is respect for the people that you're meeting. It's also as a sort of indicator of potentially, confidence in yourself and in your abilities. It's also a signal of attention to detail. So if you can imagine, you've got two salespeople come to see you. One of them is, dressed presentably, sharply, whereas another person comes in looking sort of disheveled and slovenly or whatever. You're immediately going to make a judgment as to, which one you might be more inclined to deal with based on how they've shown up. Well, the exact same goes for video as well. If you are able to show up, looking more the part on your video, and that's not to say your personal appearance, although that's still a factor, but everything that's going on inside this box around us, then you are going to have that same effect as that difference between someone who's dressed smartly or not. There is another level, though, which is about it being a signal of capability and the level of capability that you have, and being able to command a level of respect as well. Now, if you think about when you've been on a Zoom meeting before and you've seen like a whole gallery potentially, sometimes there'll be like one or two people that will really kind of leap out of the screen at you because of the way that they appear on screen. And again, I'm not talking about personal appearance here. I'm talking about their Zoom appearance, how they appear, how they look on screen in terms of their image quality and so on. So that's where there is this huge opportunity for us, because we have the opportunity to now, have a decent suit to wear when we are on the screen as well. Now, in a little moment, I'm going to share with you this thing that I have called the value formula, which is essentially just a framework for how you approach beginning to level up your video presence, because you might see some of the setups that people have. Maybe they look overly complicated. And the fact is, you don't need to start with that. And I'll talk about that a little bit later. But before I do, I want to just talk about this opportunity and just sort of question why it is that more people aren't doing this. Because I've honestly, frankly, been amazed that, during the pandemic, which is becoming more and more of a distant memory now, everybody was forced online. All business was being done online. Everybody was meeting online. And yet people weren't taking these few simple steps to try to level up the way that they were appearing. And obviously now the world has opened up. It's getting back to normal, or is back to normal. But there's still a huge opportunity to do everything online, or do a lot more of it online. I'm very lucky to have been able to have basically carved out an entire business from here in the north of Thailand. I rarely see anybody that face to face, and yet I've got clients that are based around the world. We have in our academy, we have office hours every week, and we've got people on all continents there. Well, I suppose except Antarctic, but I'm working on that one. So the point about it is, though, you can really have a sort of global audience from wherever you are. So why is it then that people are not harnessing this capability a little bit more? So really, there are a number of reasons, and let's just call these what they are. It's basically a wall of limiting beliefs, and maybe you've experienced one or more of these. Now, it actually starts with the first one, which might be just, not knowing there is another way. So some people think, yeah, I absolutely know how to use Zoom, Teams, or whatever the meeting platform is. And so, yeah, I've got a good camera, I've got a good microphone, and so I'm doing it as well as it can be done. Well, maybe there is another way, and maybe this is the same as that client that I mentioned earlier, where when I spoke to them and demonstrated, a potential other way of doing things, their eyes were open to the possibility. So just because you might well be fully versed into how to use all of these online platforms, it doesn't mean that there might not be something else you can do to elevate that little bit further. Maybe it is that this idea of just not knowing where to start. Well, that's what webinars like this are for. And as we get further on, I will give you a sort of path to follow and give you that starting point. And spoiler alert, it's basically you start with what you've got right now, but then just having a simple upgrade path in place. So I'll explain that in a moment too. The other idea then is this idea that maybe, you're just not technically minded. It can be overwhelming to, see some of the tech. I mean, for example, my setup might look a little bit like overkill to many people. So I've got, multiple cameras around the place. I've got these studio lights, and on top of the desk, I've got a number of different devices that I'm controlling this by. But the fact is, you don't need to start with all of that. So if that's what your vision of leveling up video is, thinking about something like this, which potentially could look like a complicated setup, just know that you can start really simply to begin with. So then the next point then is that, maybe you're thinking that, well, this is going to be expensive. And this is why I love this analogy of video being the new business suit, because in actual fact, you can get a really good quality setup that's going to elevate you above, anything else that you thought was possible for less than the cost of a new business outfit. I'm using some software here to do some camera switching, which is Ecamm Live, which is, basically if you look at it over a year, it costs $1 a day. So it's a, really minimal investment over the course of a year in your business. And then just, simply these days we can get some really high quality camera equipment, microphones and things like that. It's really easy to sort of build out something that, it could be even less than, $500, and you've just got all that you need to really make a huge impact. You can do it lower cost than that as well, but, it's a reasonable amount to estimate. So then the next sort of myth that we can just dispel here is this idea that I'm not confident on camera. And I'll talk about this a little bit later on as well. But sometimes I feel that people maybe think they're almost like not worthy of the video presence that they can have because they feel that they're not just going to be able to live up to it. And the funny thing about this is that the reason I got into video in the first place was when I was creating a course some years ago. And I was my own worst enemy when it came to creating the course content because I was always striving for perfection. I'm a perfectionist at heart. And I felt that it would, I was always just trying to get the perfect take, trying to do all of the editing to get things together. And it would take me, honestly, an embarrassing amount of time to even create a 5-minute video. I'm not talking hours, I'm talking days. So I figured there must be a better way. And that's when I looked into this idea of being able to just create videos in one take with no edits. And that's what my YouTube channel is called, Take One Tech, for that reason. I was just creating all of my videos in one take with no edits. And the funny thing about that is when I actually look back relatively recently at this idea that I had around perfectionism and that was what I was trying to overcome, really, when I drilled down into that a bit further, what was driving the perfectionism was this idea that I was trying to perform confidence. That's the whole reason I wanted to edit things to be perfect, because I wanted to somehow portray this idea of, everything being perfect to be therefore looking confident. Well, the funny thing is, the moment you stop trying to look confident is the moment that you actually look confident, because then it comes across as completely natural. And we had an incident during the Digital Stage Summit, which I ran earlier on this year, where there was a few technical issues and it just happened and we just dealt with it. But then afterwards, somebody messaged me and said, "Oh, you look so confident when you were handling that." And the fact of the matter is, confidence never came into it. It was just a matter of understanding the tools, getting into a flow of how to use things. And then when issues arise, you just deal with them. And the fact is, people don't really care about those things ultimately, and I think it's very easy to be self-critical, but we'll talk about that a little bit later on as well. The fact is, though, all of these things are basically just myths. They're just barriers getting in the way of what we're trying to achieve. And the fact is, you can start now with whatever you have and you are ready. Everybody is ready to do this and they can just start where they are right now. But the fact is, this is this opportunity because the majority of people still aren't doing it and still won't do it. So you have this unique opportunity right now. So with that said, let's move on into the value formula, which hopefully will give you a bit of a framework to understand about, how you can sort of approach leveling up your video presence, because there are a few different elements to it. And it starts with the V of the value formula. And the V is for visuals, not so much video. We're talking here about video is the new business suit, but actually it's almost visuals are, because when you think about people on screen, it's not just how you are looking. It's not just what the camera is showing for you. It's, as I say, everything that's going on in this box. And so we have this unique opportunity again that you don't get in real life, in reality, when you're meeting people, that we can just kind of have information coming on the screen around us. So rather than me having to go and, grab a little document or printed out thing to show you the value formula, I can have it just appear on the screen below me. Just as earlier, I had the wall of limiting beliefs come on the right-hand side there, or the left-hand side rather. You've just got this screen real estate that you can work with. And so visuals is about all the things that you can do on the screen. Now, I'm using a combination here of Ecamm Live, which is the live production software that I use, combined with Keynote for presentations to, bring on these little animated things around me. And I call these immersive presentations because rather than just a slide deck, if you can imagine me doing this on Zoom, regular Zoom, the traditional way, maybe my little Zoom window would have disappeared off into the corner and then we'd just have my slides filling the screen. Well, this way I'm still front and center, but the information I want to share is still on the screen just down there. So that's what we're talking about with visuals. Now, there is another aspect of visuals, which is, of course, how you show up on camera. And there are a few simple things that you can do there, which is, first of all, thinking about just the framing of you in the screen. So often I see people on Zoom calls where basically their eyes are kind of at this level because they think, well, I've got to have my eyes in the center. But what that does is it leaves a load of headroom above you and actually makes it look like almost your chair's too low or something like that. If you look on TV at the way that newsreaders are positioned, or in photography as well, they use this thing called the rule of thirds. And so I can demonstrate that what we think about is like the way that the screen is split up. If you just imagine a horizontal line, a third of the way up, you want to aim for your eyes to be at that level. That's the way that they do it in TV. That's the way that newsreaders are framed, and they do it like that for a reason. It looks a lot more natural, same within portrait photography and things like that. You've also got the rule of thirds, like a third of the way across, if you've got information on the screen and things like that as well. So that's just something that even without investing in any gear, you can just be a little bit more conscious about the way that you're showing up and the way that your camera is set up. And so even if you've got a laptop, you can just sort of prop it up and get it so that it is at the right level. The next aspect then is the audio. And this is arguably more important than the video, because if you've got great quality video, but people can't hear you clearly, they're going to switch off a lot quicker than actually if your images may be slightly fuzzy, but they can still hear you clearly. The important thing is that you need to be heard with, total clarity. And that's where investing in a decent microphone is a great first step. And it's actually the first thing that I invested in when I started making videos was a decent microphone and actually a Stream Deck, which I'll talk about a little bit later. But that was the first thing that I did. And I was using a 10-year-old camera, but I did make sure my audio was correct. And this, again, comes down to this idea of being able to, deliver your value with clarity. People you are talking to need to be able to hear you. And just as in Zoom calls as well, when you hear somebody's audio drops out or something like that, or people are on mute, it still happens to the best of us all the time. I did it just earlier on as well, coming into a meeting on mute. But if people can hear you, but maybe there's some distortion or whatever in your voice, it's going to be really distracting. And this actually all comes down to it's not about delivering your message with clarity. It's also delivering your message with flow as well, so that there is no disruption to it. So if you think about when somebody's going to share their screen, and this is kind of applies to audio and visuals as well. When somebody goes to share their screen in Zoom, there's often this sort of dance that goes on where they say, okay, I'm going to go and share my screen. I'm looking for the screen share button. I'm clicking, and then, oh no, not that window, this other one. And it sort of disrupts the whole flow of the message, and it disrupts the flow of the value that you are trying to deliver. Whereas with live production and eCam, you can easily just switch over to, if I want to share a screen, I can just flick over like that. If I want to switch back to my slides, I can do that way, and it just doesn't break the flow of the conversation, doesn't break the flow of what it is you are trying to talk about. Well, the same goes for audio as well, making sure that your audio is crisp and people can hear you clearly. The next step then is the lighting, and although technically this is all part of the visuals as well, I separate it out because it's such a crucial part, and it's one that people often overlook. Sometimes people will go and get a high quality microphone and a high quality camera, and yet they haven't put the thought into the lighting, and so they're wondering why their image is still perhaps not looking as good as it should. And so that's where lighting comes in, because actually lighting can improve even a low quality camera. And as I mentioned, the first thing I invested in was the microphone. Well, the second thing was just some decent lights, and that was before the camera upgrade. And so the camera I was using at the time was a 10-year-old Canon camera. So although it was reasonable at the time, it was certainly something that was dated when I started using it. But the lights really enhanced it a lot. Now there is a technique which is well known amongst photographers and film and TV, and it's this idea of three-point lighting. And I'll just briefly mention this because what I've got here is a large light over this side. This is known as the key light. It's the primary light that's shining on me. There is another light up here which is known as the fill light. The purpose of that is to fill in the shadows generated by the larger light over here. And then behind me, behind that camera, is a light which is known as the, actually technically it's known as the hair light. I prefer to call it the backlight for obvious reasons. And so that is intended to sort of shine behind me to sort of separate me from the background a little bit. Now I've got some, a fairly dark background with some colored light on it, so that helps create that separation as well. The point about it is, though, although I do have, these large studio lights, you can get the same effect just by simply positioning lights in these positions and being a little bit more conscious about how you are doing things. So it's really about understanding these principles and then applying them to what you've got. And that then brings us on to the U, which is around understanding. And yes, it is about understanding the technical aspect. So, understanding about the rule of thirds to position yourself on screen, understanding about three-point lighting to know how to illuminate yourself on the screen, understanding a little bit about mic technique. So one of the things I see is people will go and buy, the same microphone that Joe Rogan uses on his podcast, for example, and then they wonder, why doesn't it sound like Joe Rogan? Well, maybe because they've got it on the other side of the room, and so then you're going to get a lot more reverberation around the room rather than the proximity effect than you get when a particular type of microphone, like a dynamic mic, is used close up like this. So there are certain technical aspects that you do need to understand, but there are plenty of resources out there to understand these basic things, and I've obviously got some, and everyone here has too, in terms of the presenters. But there's another aspect to understanding, which is that thing that I kind of alluded to earlier on. It's simply understanding what's possible. If you are somebody who has only ever been using your camera and mic going into a regular Zoom meeting or whatever, and didn't even realize that there was this other option to be able to have, graphics on screen like this and to be able to control them all yourself. So I'm controlling all of these things with a device called the Stream Deck. So this is essentially it's a programmable keyboard. It sounds more complicated than it is because it's really easy to use, and it's kind of like drag and drop with the Ecamm software and the Stream Deck software. But what that means is at a push of a button, I can basically just switch back and forth between these different cameras, these different camera angles like this. And I'm just controlling all of that. Now, if you weren't aware that that was even a possibility, you might have thought that if somebody wants to change their camera or, switch to a scene to share something in Zoom, that maybe potentially you would have to go and just do that manually. So it's this understanding of, the real possibility of what you can actually do. And again, that's what these webinars are for. So then the next part then is around execution. And this is about putting it into action. There's that phrase that I'm sure you've heard, which is, all the gear and no idea. Somebody's been out and bought all the kit and then they've got no idea how to use it. Well, there's one level beyond that, which is almost more of a shame or more of a crime, should we say, which is when you've got all the gear, all the ideas, like you do actually know and understand how to use it all, but are still not executing on it. And that's why things like, having a supportive community like we have in the academy or places like that, where you can actually get to put things into practice. And I mentioned about how I started Take One Tech as a way to, practice this process of making videos in one take because I was trying to create course content. Well, that was all part of this process of me getting into this flow with doing things where I was actually executing. By creating videos. So I created a video a day for the first 100 days. I extended that out to a year. And in that, I was getting to sort of build up this muscle memory of becoming a live producer. I'll talk about live production a little bit later, but all that basically means is just sort of switching scenes and doing these things back and forth. So once you get into the process of using the gear and putting it into practice, it just becomes second nature. So that's where we get into this state called flow, and that's the flow advantage, as I call it, where suddenly the tech melts into the background. Now, I have to sort of give a little disclaimer here. The tech should sort of fade into the background, but tech being tech, occasionally there are issues. So yes, that will still always happen. But basically, though, you do build this muscle memory. So you're not necessarily having to think about which buttons you're pressing or where you're pressing, because it just does become second nature. So, I don't necessarily have to look down at the Stream Deck to know the button that I want to press if I want to share my screen up there. I can just intuitively feel where it is on the Stream Deck down here, press the button, and then it's going to go to that screen share scene. So it does become this idea of second nature and the flow that you have. And as I say, the purpose of that flow is that you maintain the momentum that you have. Like, okay, here, this is a sort of one-way webinar where I'm just talking, but I'm able to do all this stuff live and produce it. But it's exactly the same when you are in a sales call, when you're in a coaching call, or anything else. And what you actually end up with is you end up with a full production at the end of it. So you reduce the friction, and when you are becoming this sort of live producer, then you end up with being able to create polished productions. And you might think that, what is a live producer? Surely live production is where you've got a whole team and a mixing desk, or you think about, it conjures up ideas of TV studios. Well, actually, live production is literally just what I've been doing there. Just pressing a button to switch and then pressing a button to switch back. There we go. I've just done a little bit of production. And as I say, what that gives you then is you get a really polished output. And so when we come back again to that first example I mentioned of a client who was looking to just level up their, group team meetings every week that they were having with their 300 strong sales force, what they were able to produce then was, at the end of the session, they had this really polished production that they could then share with their extended team. Imagine when you do sales calls, you've probably either experienced this on one side or the other. A salesperson goes in to see somebody in a company or a potential client or whatever. They have the conversation and then maybe leave some literature or something like that with them. And then that person then goes and maybe talks with somebody else in the company or in the team. And they've got that literature then to sort of share with them. But in the real world, in the real life world, they don't get the full on presentation. Well, what this allows us to do, though, if you think like a live producer, is you can be delivering the sales call or the webinar or the workshop or whatever it is, and then you get a fully produced artifact afterwards that can then be either shared for replay or shared, within the company that you are presenting to or whatever. So that's the real sort of benefit that you have with live production. So the tools that I'm using, just very briefly, Ecamm Live allows me to create all of these different scenes. So this is a scene, this camera angle is another scene, this one is another scene, and then I'm combining that with Keynote, or you can do this with PowerPoint or any other presentation software, and that is then enabling me to bring on the content onto screen. And the Stream Deck then is the tool that I'm using to basically switch. So I've just got these buttons on here. You don't need to have as many as this, but I've got these buttons to then be able to just press a button to take me back to whichever scene that I want to go to. And this is the very same tech that is being used to produce this entire webinar that Martin and Neil are using behind the scenes to bring people in from Zoom as well. So with that said, let's just talk briefly then about where to focus, because we've seen some setups that I've got, some other people's setups that you may have seen as well. So where do you actually focus? Well, as I mentioned, the place to start is with what you have, and you certainly can make some small tweaks to your existing setup. If you've got a laptop that is normally on the desk when you're on Zoom calls, and you've got the I call it the classic up the nose shot, especially if people have got it on a coffee shop with the camera pointing up at them, think about just repositioning the camera so that you've got yourself framed, the camera is more at eye level, and you use the rule of thirds. Maybe with the audio, just taking some steps to maybe dampen out the background noise. Although Zoom's background noise removal is really good these days. But then with lighting, just think about how to position existing lights that you have to just be a little bit more thoughtful about that. But when it comes to actually an investment path, thinking about investing in a quality microphone first and foremost. Now, this is, a broadcast mic, and I've got it right in front of my face because that's pretty much where it's intended, sort of a couple of inches away or an inch away or so. That's where this works best. I know that this look might not work for some people. They might not like the idea of having something in shot when they are on business meetings or whatever. But you can certainly get mics that are, slightly out of shot, or just positioned differently, or a little lav mic that clips onto your clothes or whatever. But just thinking about ways that you can just improve your microphone quality if you're just using your built-in mic. Then think about 3-point lighting, as I say, and this doesn't necessarily mean investing in full-on studio lights, but you can just get some other lights or lower cost lights. As long as you've got the sort of positions of them correct, then it's going to make a huge difference to your camera. And then again, as I say, think about that camera positioning, and that might involve, if you have got an external camera, a new external camera that you've bought, that might involve just getting some tripod or some way of mounting it so that you've got it at a better position so that it's going to be at eye level. And then I do highly recommend, for essentially $1 a day, Ecamm Live just transforms the way that you can show up. I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing now, where I've got my camera coming in and I'm also bringing essentially Keynote slides in here as well, and I'm just producing all of this sort of live as we go. That wouldn't be possible without Ecamm. And then there are other options as well, by the way. I should say OBS, although OBS stands for Open Broadcast Software. It's essentially the same kind of product, and that's available for Mac and PC. OBS is free and open source. Ecamm is a paid product and it's Mac only. What you find is there's lots of people in the Mac community that started on OBS. I always say I pulled out my last hair with OBS before I switched over to Ecamm. So yeah, it's a great piece of software, but other options are available. And finally, the Stream Deck. And the reason why I mentioned Stream Deck on here as on the sort of gear list, if you like, or purchasing list, is because although you might think that it's got stream in the name, so therefore it's going to be for live streaming, which is kind of its original intended purpose, I guess. It was built for streamers, but it is actually, in fact, the ultimate productivity tool. And out of all of the gear in my studio, if you had to take everything away and leave me with one thing, it would definitely be the Stream Deck, because the Stream Deck is just an ultimate productivity tool that allows you to do all kinds of things in everything else that you do. Because of the programmable nature, you can use it to arrange the windows on your desktop. You can use it to open and close certain things, have it set up everything as you want it for at the touch of a button. It's got so many uses beyond live production and streaming, so I highly recommend it. So as we wrap up then, I just want to come back to this idea of camera performance, camera confidence, and thinking about it of being presence over performance. So often I think when people have this idea that they are maybe afraid of the camera, people say that often, don't they? Well, we can't be afraid of the camera. The camera is an inanimate object, but what it is kind of what it represents. And I think sometimes when we're speaking into the camera, because we are not getting all of those normal cues, although I've got obviously all of the gallery here that's in Zoom, but so often when we're recording video, it's just us and the camera basically, and so we don't get those cues, we don't get that feedback from the audience or from the the person that you're communicating with. So it's easy to sort of lose that connection and sort of turn the lens internally inward to start looking at ourselves and thinking about how we are performing or how we are sounding, when in actual fact, if you can just turn that idea back to the person that you're helping and come back to this idea that you've got some value to deliver, you're trying to deliver that to somebody. It's easy when you are streaming to YouTube, potentially to millions or billions of people. The fact is, it's probably not. For most people, it's probably a dozen or more, or 100 or 150, whatever. But still, ultimately, you're only talking to like one person at a time. And if you can just think about like how you are helping that person and how you're able to deliver that value or communicate that value, then when you come from a place of service and helping people, really that fear doesn't have any place to land. You are focused more so on the people that you're trying to help. I've got a free little mini course about this called the Confidence Switch, and this is to help people get over this idea of camera confidence. So just coming back to this idea of just thinking about the people that you are helping and the person that you are helping, and maybe even just visualize an individual, and then speak to just that person. And then that warmth and clarity that you have when you speak to that friend or somebody that you know well, then that is going to be perceived by those other people who may well potentially be strangers who don't know you. So just to finally close out then, I just want to urge you all to take the time to step into this idea of clarity and flow, because you really don't need a full-blown studio. You don't need to wait to get perfect. You just need to start. Start with what you have. Maybe consider adding a mic. Think about your framing. Start with that idea of flow, and start crucially with that attention to serve. And as you do, your voice will get clearer, your message will hit harder, and your presence becomes unforgettable. And it's not because of the gear, but because you showed up with clarity, confidence, and flow. And that is how you deliver your true value through video.
Marvelous.
With that said, we'll go over to any
That was a
questions.
smooth transition. Hurrah!
Thank you so much. Bravo, Alec. Thank you so much.
Well done, Alec. And what resonates there was that I was that salesman who was the same as 10 other salesmen with a very, very similar product trying to stand out. And had I got my time again, because this wasn't all available at that particular time when I was a salesman, I'd have loved to have this digital advantage. And in particular, something that I noticed that you mentioned, I just wanted to re-emphasize really, is quite often when you meet somebody, you've got a specific amount of time to talk to them, and it could be very limited. But by putting video in along with graphics in the background and things happening at the same time, as humans, we're more than capable of listening to stuff, watching your face, watching what's going on behind you. We don't have to read out the PowerPoint slides effectively. Those can all be things which are channels of information that are happening simultaneously in a time limited environment. So I think that's brilliant. But before we go any further, what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to move over to the comments, because we have a few questions that are coming in, and I know that Stefan has asked this question a couple of times. So I'm going to come to Stefan first of all. So bear with me while I add Stefan's question to the broadcast.
Going on now, is that many?
And it's a good one. How does the rule of thirds work in vertical streams or videos?
I would say exactly the same. If you're taking up the vertical space and you are visible in all of that vertical, then wherever you are on the screen, then apply it in the same way that right here, we are all in our individual boxes, but we're still like following that rule. If you look at where our eye lines are, we're all kind of like a third of the way down. So it's wherever you are framed on the screen, be it a tall vertical or a ultra wide or whatever, just it's going to help with giving that professional look.
Yeah, and I
to
think
your point about those guidelines as well, I think it's really important. And we have some guides that we can share for free later as well. But just to have something that you can sort of position your head, position your eye line. And as you said, it just applies, doesn't matter what frame you're in, just make sure that you're sort of within those guides. And it's a great thing to have, I think.
It's a good point, though, because interestingly enough, we produced a guide that looks almost identical to the one that you just used.
Well, I tell you, I've got to give credit where that came from, and now I'm forgetting his name. It's Chris Fenwick from Office Hours. So there's a thing called Office Hours run by Alex Lindsay, and he was the one to create the Fenwick Guide, as they all called it. And so mine is just copied from him. So I've got to give credit. If you've seen this go round, specifically with this dotted line, Chris Fenwick is the guy that created it originally.
I must have seen that simultaneously, probably, and copied it accidentally.
Yeah. It's so good.
So Dr. Sunny has a question for you. If video is the new business card or suit, how do you recommend using short-form videos versus long-form videos when networking or introducing your brand?
That would be a good one for Scott. I know that he's got some great insight on this in terms of multiple different ways of doing video on LinkedIn, so it's perfect.
And Dr. Sunny, I am definitely going to address that because I think there are 4 distinct types of video that we can use. So that'll be part of my presentation.
So let's not spoil it for everyone. Let's
Okay.
for Scott to go through his
We won't spoil it.
in a moment.
Coming up next, you can take this one, Neil, I think. We'll share the questions out. Why not?
Okay, I've been using my iPhone as a webcam and it works, but I'd like to be able to consult my iPhone when on a call. What webcam camera would you recommend? Well, as Alex said, start with what you've got. But if you've just got an iPhone and you need that for something else, then my advice would be to look at some of the OBSBot range of cameras. I mean, for the money and the quality, they are probably one of the best webcams out there, and you can start from as little as $69 for one of the OBSBot Meet 2 cameras, for example. And yes, our next webinar will be talking all about cameras, setups, and things like that. But yeah, if you can't wait, take a look at the OBSBot range. That would be my recommendation. Don't know, Alec, if you've got any other favorites you could recommend for.
I'm technically an OBSBot brand ambassador, so I'm going to agree with that.
Yeah, me too. So that's why we have to say it. No, but I'm just kidding.
What I'll say though is when you're looking at like the range, the difference in pricing, you're going to get good quality out of all of them. Again, with the caveat of their association with OBSBot, but you're going to get good quality out of all of them. What you're paying for with the like higher cost ones is basically more features. Like the Meet 2 is a tiny little camera that gives great image quality, but it's sort of static. Then you've got things like the Tiny 2. That's what my cameras are that are giving these different camera angles. But they've got pan, tilt, zoom, AI tracking, and things like that. And then there's the tail 2 as well. That's or got lots more features. So you're going to get great quality with any of them. Don't think you're sacrificing it at the lower end of the range.
And don't forget, it's Amazon Prime Day, so you might be able to get a good deal, as Simon said. So go and check out what's available on the OBSBot site on Amazon right now.
Amazon Prime Day, I think Dan was mentioning that Stream Deck's got a good price for a Stream Deck. So those of you who've only got one, obviously you can go and buy another one. Those of you who've got none at all, then go and do that. So the question, I'll bring it back on again there, just in case you didn't get a chance to read it, Alec. But it says, you mentioned having a colour background. A lot of people are having the same look. How do we stand out without looking like we're copying other people?
That's a good one. Adding a little bit of personality to it. I'm in the process of building out my studio, and my friend Rich said those things behind make it look like I'm maybe building out an Indian or Asian restaurant. So I might just have a full Indian menu going on in the back wall there at some point. that would be quite unique. But I think really, in all seriousness, it comes down to you might well have some similar things like a particular color or whatever. But the main thing is like about the actual information and content you're delivering. That's the other underlying thing is being able to look and sound the part in terms of the audio and video quality is one thing, but you still have got to back that up with your own content and your own personality. So hopefully I would say that's where the differentiation comes, is what you're actually delivering through that setup.
So I'm loving your nice background, by the way. I think it looks really good.
I'm just keeping an eye on time here, and so that's been brilliant, Alec, but we're going to move into a little bit of promotion for the forthcoming WebEx's or webinars that we've got coming up.
WebExes? Let's not mention
Not
that.
WebEx. Don't mention WebEx.
Don't mention WebEx.
Right, we will move on, but
by the way.
don't go anywhere, Alec. You get to come
on.
on again a bit later. So anyone who's got any questions a bit later on, this is the format the Q&A goes out in. We will see questions from all of the different platforms, and I can bring them all in. So we don't have a Q&A as such running in LinkedIn, but what you do is you just put your question in, and we'll see it, and then we'll answer it.
Exactly.
Hopefully. So
Thanks again,
Alec gets a chance to relax for a second or two, and we'll move on to Neil.
All right. Well, thanks a lot. So I'm just going to go through a few of our up-and-coming webinars. So this is our sort of first season, if you like. We're just trialing out doing some webinars on a monthly basis. This is webinar number 1, and we have 3 more coming up. So on the 8th of August, in our next webinar, I'm going to be helping you get the best out of your camera and explaining some of the things that Alec has already mentioned, but I'm going a little bit deeper into some of the camera settings as well. Some of the things that you should be aware of to dial into that professional video look. And I'm also going to be joined by the wonderful Chris Stone from Dealcasters, who's going to be talking about audio production, providing you with some invaluable tips on how to get the best from your audio gear. And as Alex said, remember, audio is 80% of your video content, so please don't miss out on the video stuff. If you go on to the next one, in September, we have Lux from Streamer Live and Katie from Ecamm Live, who's going to be helping you engage your audience and build your communities through interactive tools, such as Streamer Live that we're looking at today, and various strategies to build those relationships and create unforgettable online experiences. And they both have a lot of experience in the community space, so that's coming up in September. And in October, we're going to have Scott back, and we have a final webinar in this first series featuring Charlie Hills and Scott, as I've mentioned, who's going to be cracking the code on how to create engaging LinkedIn video content, optimize your profile in order to get more qualified leads, and convert your connections into clients. And Charlie is an AI specialist and uses a lot of AI in line with LinkedIn, so looking forward to that. So that's what we've got coming up. It's all on our page, and I'm just going to put a link into the Luma Academy, so you can just basically go and click on that link and sign up and register for free. All right, over to you.
And next up, if you give me a thumbs up, Scott, we're going to switch to you full screen.
I am ready.
He's ready. Let's go.
Hey, everybody. I'm Scott. I like to say that, video isn't about going viral. It's about being visible. So what I want to do, and this is a great program, a great little module to follow, Alec, because I want to help you take your video and let's leverage it on LinkedIn. And we're going to do that by increasing our LinkedIn video influence. Now, I like to say video compresses sales cycles and creates influence because it builds that know, like, and trust, doesn't it? Now, I know after working at LinkedIn that we know that video for you on LinkedIn, you're 5 times more likely to start conversations. According to Hootsuite, you'll get 3 times more engagement. And the Social Shepherd says, that's not easy to say, by the way. The Social Shepherd says that people are leveraging video. 96% of the people are leveraging video to learn about something. And you know what they're learning about? You. They're learning about me. That's what they want to learn about. So when we start diving into this and we get a little bit more into what's happening on LinkedIn, Richard von der Bloom has a great in-depth report about LinkedIn. And he talks about where's all the activity, what's going on, what's working, what's not working on LinkedIn. The bottom line is video on LinkedIn is working. And we're seeing a lot more engagement. There's a lot more activity around video compared to text posts, compared to image posts, polls, and even the carousels. So I have a question for everybody. Here's a quick poll for us, guys. Are you using video on LinkedIn? And in chat, just put a simple yes or no. Are you using video on LinkedIn? In And gentlemen, are we able to show those results in Stream Alive?
Oh, Scott, that one's not coming into Stream Alive.
We
It's
haven't
going
got a
to
poll
be
for that specific one. It's going to be a workload for your next one. But
Okay.
but a number. I think
I'm
it's a
looking at,
50-50
I
at the
see,
moment by the look of things.
cool. I see some that are saying yes, sometimes no, not lately. Well, what I want to do is let's talk about why you should be. And this leads into the principles of influence. In this book, if you haven't read this book, this is a fantastic book by Robert Cialdini. And what he does is he outlines 6 principles of influence. And so let's review these 6 principles of influence backed by his scientific studies on what creates influence. And I want to give you guys some ideas on how you might be able to leverage this on LinkedIn. The first principle is authority. And what we mean by authority is just that we have a tendency to trust, knowledgeable experts. We trust people, especially if they display confidence themselves. And we see this when it comes to doctors or airline pilots. In fact, there's so many real life examples of nurses defaulting to the doctor, even though the nurse is smart, they know what's going on. They know the doctor's making a mistake. Or co-pilots defaulting to the pilot. We defer to people who have authority. And you see this in TED Talks even, right? People have a de facto authority because they've given a TED Talk. How do we leverage this ourselves? Well, on LinkedIn, what we want to do is we want to position ourselves as the authority. We want to highlight our expertise. We want to create content in our posts, our posts with images, our carousels, and particularly our videos. And when it comes to building authority on LinkedIn, I encourage you to create some of the longer form educational types of videos. And I'm going to talk more about that later on. And Dr. Sunny, that's when I'll get to the question that you had. The next principle is social proof. And what do I mean by social proof? Social proof is just that, we look to others for guidance. For example, this book on Amazon has over 6,000 recommendations. I want to say like 6,200. It has a 4.7 rating. Okay, 6,200 people say this is a good book, right? That's what it's about. So we look for the social proof. Now, when we get into it, one of the things we're talking about, the Amazon reviews, but we're looking at it in restaurants, right? Even if there's a line out the door, the food has to be good, right? So how do we leverage this ourselves? What does this mean for us? Well, on LinkedIn, what we want to do is we want to create video posts. We want to get more engagement. We want to get the more likes. Yes, I know it's a little dopamine hit, but it's also social proof that when you get more likes and more comments and more engagement on your posts, obviously the algorithm bumps it up. But it also shows other people, hey, they're listening to this person. They must really know what they're talking about, right? So that's what we're trying to do. And so when it also comes to social proof, think about this. Think about making sure you get those recommendations on your profile from others. Again, it's a form of social proof. Now, the third principle gets into liking. Now, we probably all know this, but we're likely to be influenced by those that we like. And that, I know, it's a shock, isn't it? What we see is that, we're trying to find that common ground. You see salespeople do this all the time, right? I mean, they're saying, you like pickleball? I like pickleball too. They're just trying to find that common ground. But we've seen it in entire business models, haven't we? We see it in business models like the multi-level marketing. It's about selling to your friends. Liking works, but on LinkedIn, what does that mean for us? Well, when we start talking about is how do we start to show our personalities? How do people get to know us much more so than just pros in their feed? It's they get to see our personality. And because we know that the video engages and encourages others, that's how people get to, really know, like, and trust us more. That's the basis of the whole thing, really. That's what we want to get down to. Now, that leads us into the next principle, which is reciprocity. And this one kind of rubs me the wrong way a little bit. So I want to talk about that in a little bit. But what this is basically saying is that when we do something nice for others, they feel obligated to be nice back to us. Okay, in the real world, what this means is that, if you ever go to, Costco or Trader Joe's or any of the big grocery stores and they give out all those samples, they're not doing it to feed your kids. They do it. They do it because they know it increases sales. They know that when they're out handing out these samples, it increases sales because it invokes the reciprocity. It's no different than in email marketing. What a lot of us might know as a freebie. A freebie is designed to invoke reciprocity. You give me your email address, I give you this. So that's real world examples right there. But what does that mean for you and me on LinkedIn? Well, what we want to do is we want to just share our knowledge freely. We want to like and comment on other people's posts. And you know what that does? That invokes reciprocity, that they will like and comment on your post. All those likes and comments, guess what that's doing? That's driving the algorithm that promotes your post to even more people. So there is a whole strategy behind LinkedIn, just about, you don't even have to post. I say you could ride the coattails of people, and you can like and comment and add your value, add your knowledge to their post, but you do it in the comments. And that's how you start to really meet more and more people. So leveraging reciprocity, to me, is huge. And it shows that you're a resource to the community. That gets us into the fifth principle for Cialdini, and he's talking about commitment and consistency. Now, when we get into commitment and consistency, we're basically saying is that people who say, yeah, I'll do this, I sign up for something, and particularly if they do it in a public manner and they're, outgoing about it, that what this drives is that, oh, they have to follow through. There's that inert pressure that now they have to follow through on this. So in the real world, what we see this in like fitness apps where you make a commitment, you're going to go run your 6 miles, and it drives you to stick to it. It's why salespeople try to get us to say yes. Gosh, we all dread having to go buy a car, and the car salesman says, you have to have a car, don't you? Yes. You want a nice car that's reliable? Yes. We know what they're doing. So it's kind of manipulative there. But for us on LinkedIn, what does that mean? Well, for us on LinkedIn, it means that we need to consistently show up. You don't want to post and ghost, if you will, right? You don't want to post and then disappear for a few months, or just post your comment and not like and comment on others. So it's all about following through and showing up in a consistent manner. Now, the last one, when it comes to the principles of influence, is scarcity. And when we start talking about scarcity, is that we place a higher value on things that we perceive to be in limited supply, or there's a time sensitive nature to it. And I know you've seen this, right? We've seen this with tickets when you're buying something. Oh, there's only 2 left. Yeah, bull, right? There's only 2 left. And what they're trying to do is they try to create that sense of urgency, that sense of scarcity. Robert Cialdini in the book talked about he did a study and he had 2 cookie jars. Okay, there's a cookie jar on the left and a cookie jar on the right. And what they're saying is that the cookie jar on the left had a lot of cookies, and the cookie jar on the right didn't have any, just crumbs. And people would say, "Well, I want the one over here. That's got to be a damn good cookie, right?" Everybody was eating those, and this is still full. It was the same cookie, right? It didn't matter. It was the exact same cookie, but this one's perceived higher. So what we want to do is we want to leverage scarcity ourselves. And one of the things that we can do on LinkedIn is that, remember, when you are leveraging video is still kind of scarce on LinkedIn. So you're already unique. And your video allows you to stand out in your feed. So leverage scarcity because it is all about being unique and standing out. Algorithm loves that, and we know it drives engagement. But the real power here, is when you start to stack all of this together. So you start to build your authority. And then you start leveraging some social proof. And then you're consistently visible. You're consistently on LinkedIn, and you've got that commitment and consistency. And oh, by the way, people start to liking you, and you're invoking reciprocity, and you're scarce. You're unique. That is truly the power of all of these principles, is about stacking all of them to leverage them. So I do have a question for you guys. And I think now on this one, we got the poll for this, don't we, gentlemen?
We should have, Scott. You can just go back full screen.
I have a question for you. What word comes to mind after learning all this? If there's one word that comes to mind after what I just reviewed, what would that word be for you?
And this word cloud is going to come in via the people in the Zoom chat. But if people in the normal chat watching us on YouTube and others want to post their comments, I will just pop them in there as well so we can see if we get...
I love seeing this. Yes.
More frequent. This is great.
I love seeing this. Eye-opening. We got authority, more videos from Henrik. You know what? The word that comes to mind for me, integrity. When I look at this and I realize that you can be manipulative, that's the piece I don't want to see us do. Don't use this. At the end of the day, just be a good person. That's what I want to encourage everybody. Just be a good person. Don't be manipulative. Because I like to say web video isn't about perfection. It's about connection. It is about us being real and being authentic. And at this point, what I want to say is, I know if we take a look online, everything is about AI. And people are going to say, oh, well, you can, just turn yourself into an avatar. You could feed it a script and you can send out your avatar speaking to all your different sales prospects. And I will tell you, don't do it. As soon as you give up your authenticity to an avatar, you lose trust. So when I talk about Web video isn't about being perfect, but it is about establishing a true, authentic connection. And that gets me into what I like to recommend when it comes to the 4 different types of videos that we can use on LinkedIn. And I want you to think of this as a funnel. I mean, this is our video marketing funnel, if you will. That's what this is about. And there are the four types of videos. So Dr. Sunny, this is going to answer your question right here. As we get into this, the first type of video that we're talking about are the awareness videos. These are the top of funnel vertical videos, those vertical video shorts that we have on our phones. They're short, 60, 90 seconds, whatever. I like to call them edutainment. Some people on LinkedIn are saying, oh my God, it's the TikTokification of LinkedIn. But these are top of funnel and they are just for awareness. Now, the second type of video is what I do recommend we do more of. And that is the authority building. These are the middle of the funnel. They're the 16 by 9. They are the little bit longer, 2 to 5 minutes, educational authority building videos. That's where I think the real power lies as we start to exert our influence and teach and educate. Now, the next one is my personal favorite. And these are the authenticity videos. And I will tell you, so let me explain what it is first. These are the middle of the funnel. These are personalized messages that are going to one person. I leverage these in the LinkedIn direct messages, and I put in a video and I use the person's name. I might pull up their profile on the screen, right? Or their company. I talk about their specific problems. It is not about selling. It is about helping. But they know this video is directly to them. I use their name. I'm looking into the camera. I use their name. I pull up their profile. I'm talking about things. That is an incredibly powerful video. And even in a sales environment, one of the things that I've learned is that when you can send those for like follow-up messages, I mean, I had a video. Think about this, a video, one view, because that's all that mattered. And you close your deal because they know that video was specifically to them about their problems and your solutions. Incredibly powerful. So I encourage you to leverage, videos in your DMs and speak to your individual people. The last video that isn't really on LinkedIn, but I like to refer to it as the activation video. This is the bottom of the funnel. This is when you finally get your contacts, your people, whatever. You finally get them on a one-on-one Zoom call. You get them on a Teams call, a Google Meet call. Okay. But what happens is they have seen your videos over and over. They've seen them on LinkedIn. They saw the awareness. They saw the authority building videos. They get on your Zoom call and it's like, it looks like I'm watching one of your videos. And what it is, it's that commitment and consistency. You're the same way you are on video is when they meet you in person. It's that commitment and consistency. And you know what? If they liked you enough in your videos, your awareness and your authority and everything they're seeing in your feed, if they liked you enough in those to finally meet with you, you see how we're starting to stack our influence? That's what we're talking about. And then they get on the call and it's just like, oh, that commitment, consistency. It's like, Scott, I feel like I'm watching one of your videos and it's just like so powerful. And if they like you enough to meet with you, let's think about this for a second. If you don't like my videos, odds are you're not going to like me anymore in person. It's as simple as that. But when we start talking about compressing sales cycles, right? Because it builds that know, like, and trust. what we're talking about is that we are pre-selling with all of our videos, aren't we? We're pre-selling. They are seeing our authority. They are, beginning to like us. They see the commitment and consistency. All of this starts to come into play. So when we do meet with them one-on-one, we're already to the sale. I mean, they already know they want to do business with us. And for us, when I say it compresses sales cycles, it's because by the time they get that far, we've already gotten rid of the people who don't want to do business with us, who don't like us for whatever reason. We're not going to connect with everybody. That's fine. But we're only spending the time with the people who already know, like, and trust us. That's the power right there. That's why I get so excited about the potential here and all that. So leverage those 4 types of videos. But I do want to talk about, let's talk about some pros and cons, okay? And I'm going to start with the cons first and foremost. Number 1, reach is way down. End of last year, I had videos that had well over 1 million impressions on LinkedIn. That's not happening anymore. So the algorithm juiced everything. You're getting millions of impressions. But again, impressions aren't sales. Okay. Followers aren't buyers. So take that with a grain of salt when we start talking about the impressions and everything. And the other thing is that becomes so algorithm dependent. And I'm going to talk about that when we get to the pros in a second, is that video on LinkedIn, it's about, hey, did you get enough momentum coming out of the chute for, people liking and all that? So I don't know. The other issue I find on LinkedIn gets down into the shelf life of your videos. And I think there's a big difference between, like, say, LinkedIn and YouTube. YouTube is more of a search engine. And what I mean by that is we already know it's the second largest search engine behind Google. It's owned by Google. And the benefit of that is you can have videos that have been out there for years and they still get traction. They still get those search results because of the keywords and the SEO behind it. Not so much the case when it comes to LinkedIn video. I'm going to say it's a much shorter shelf life on LinkedIn. So definitely something to think about there. But there are some pros. And at the end of the day, LinkedIn is the place for business. You've got decision makers on LinkedIn and they've got money. They've got purse string power. So if you are doing B2B of any type, it's the place to be. And I think the other advantage is that you can begin to target your ICP. What I mean by this is on YouTube, we're very dependent upon people finding us, SEO and all that. But if you're strategic about leveraging LinkedIn, you can begin to say, okay, who is my ICP? And you begin to engage with them and you invoke reciprocity. And then you do a video and they kind of feel that, oh, I have to like Scott's video and he left a comment, I'll leave a comment. And we start to invoke this reciprocity. We start to establish our authority, that I can start to pinpoint my ICP. And yes, I'm looking at the comments. Neil, thank you. Ideal client persona, ideal client profile, that you start to target those people. Yes, you could use something like Sales Navigator and get really specific, but you want to start getting your message out to the people that you select rather than being, dare I say, dependent on the algorithm or on YouTube search. And then ultimately what we want to do when it comes to LinkedIn video is to get them off of LinkedIn. We want to minimize our dependency on the algorithm or on search results, and we want to get people off of LinkedIn into our CRM, onto our mailing lists, what have you, whatever it is, get them off so you can begin to communicate directly with them and not rely on the algorithm or somebody, putting our, video in front of them or our post, what have you. So that becomes the ultimate strategy. So in conclusion, as we start, wrapping, this up, I want you to really think about how video compresses your sales cycles and how you can leverage video to increase your influence and how you can build that know, like, and trust. I want you to stack. I keep showing this book because it's an awesome book. I want you to stack the principles of influence and build your influence by leveraging all 6 of those principles. Leverage the 4 types of videos on LinkedIn, right? Do a few awareness videos, start getting some momentum, but definitely build your authority and definitely leverage your authenticity videos and send direct DMs to people. And remember, guys, web video, it's not about perfection. It truly is about connection. And I want to leave everybody with one of my favorite quotes of all time. And that is, I've learned, and this is from Maya Angelou, she says, I've learned that people will forget what you said. People will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. And in this day and age, we can talk to people all over the world. Even today's call, with the 4 of us, leading this, we're from all over the world. But our goal is to make people feel like they can trust us. And then it's our obligation to really over deliver on the promises we've made in exchange of that trust. And if we do that, we can make this world a little bit smaller, a little bit smarter, and a whole lot better. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Scott. Wonderful. Bravo.
Thank you.
Insights there. Wonderful. So many questions for you as well. We're going to have to.
There are loads
of
questions
through these, Martin.
There are loads of comments. There's we could sit here and we could go through all of these comments. All the questions and create our own and be here for another hour. But I have to keep in mind we got 6 minutes left, guys. We've been super talkative here. So let's go press a few buttons because Brandy Joe had got a few interesting things to say, and in particular this resonates with the last statement you made, which is, how do you make people feel? They're always going to remember that, and I'm going to assume that's a bad thing to do. And I'm just going to scroll down the comments here because there's a lot of them, and this one was also from Brandy Joe.
So this is the problem with scarcity. How do you catch them? Is how you have to keep them. Catch them with love. Keep them with love. Catch them with fear. You have to keep them with fear. Interesting.
Very profound, Brandy Joe. And you and I have talked about this because I know we've met as well. Again, I think it comes back to authenticity. It comes back to being a good human. If you are manipulative and you're catching people by manipulation, by leveraging scarcity or reciprocity because it serves you, that's the mistake. When we try to serve others and we can be truly authentic and we say, you know what, I don't have to be perfect. I've made plenty of mistakes in this presentation. We don't have to be perfect, but I do want to be able to connect authentically with people. And if I'm true to myself and I come from more of a servant's heart and try to help others, that's where we connect with the people that we're meant to connect with.
Saeed says that lately LinkedIn has been showing up more content that's up to 4 weeks old in feeds, so there's hope for a bit more content longevity. Which is similar to what I was saying about when I posted in there about YouTube being, a place where you can, as you mentioned, you can have a video that's 2 or 3 years old and still does well, just that organic growth. And maybe LinkedIn is now doing something similar to that. It's still new in the game, I think, isn't it?
It's all new, and it's new to LinkedIn. I know they're trying to figure this out and everything. But so here's something I want you to think about. Think of your LinkedIn profile as a landing page. And if you were to go Google yourself, and I encourage you, Google yourself, and I know it's a little nerve-wracking to do, isn't it, right? But if you go Google yourself, I promise you, I bet your LinkedIn profile is real close to the top. I mean, for me, it was number one. For a lot of people, it's number one or number two. The reason is because it's an authoritative domain. It's been around for ages. It's tied to your name. And if somebody wants to know about you professionally, they're going to go check your LinkedIn profile. So when you start thinking about your profile as a landing page, and that's where people are going, think about the content you're putting in there, because they can go take a look at all your articles. They can take a look at all your videos. And now you are building your portfolio on LinkedIn. And one other knowledge bomb here, take advantage of the featured section. So you can feature different things in your LinkedIn profile, including a video. So you can create that message directly to people. So lots of different ways to leverage it, but definitely be authentic. And I do think as you start to build that portfolio up, LinkedIn is starting to show some of those things that are a little bit older.
All right.
So,
what did Brian say? Some people... Oh, you can bring that comment back in.
There's a couple of quick ones there. One was from Brian, which says, people connect with me and then immediately try to sell something. How do I connect with people, and what is the best way to move on from that first connection, even though actually he does want to sell them something? And I imagine it's give them something of value before trying to sell them something.
Away for free to start with, right?
You know what? That is so true. That's called a pitch slap. Okay, so there's actually a name for it. You connect with somebody and then they immediately pitch you. Okay, don't do that. Mm-hmm. The question is how do you add value? And the more you can connect with somebody, I think the best strategy and the best way to begin to connect with people is in the comments. Right. So you don't always have to make the post. You don't always have to add value on your post by posting or doing your video. You can add value by commenting on other people's posts. Show what you know, add value, elaborate on the post, add additional value, because then you know what? When they're going to say, well, first of all, Brian knows what the heck he's talking about. I want to connect with him. If you send the connection request, they're already looking at your comment saying, he knows what he's talking about. I want to connect with him. You don't have to do a pitch slap. That's not what this is about. LinkedIn is very much about relationships. And our videos develop that know, like, and trust. And that's what this is about. It's about building relationships, long-term sales, and developing the relationships that carry us long-term.
People, there are so many questions in this area that we're not going to get to, but through the wonders of Stream Alive, it's got this great thing. It will collect all the questions for me, and I can, after the event, press a button and I'll have a list of all the questions, including the ones we've answered and the ones we haven't answered through AI, at least typed answers. So it's very good for that. But today, folks, believe it or not, we've already been talking for an hour and a half, so I'm going to skip a bunch of scenes that I'd got set up and just talk to you a little bit about what everybody has got coming up in the very near future. And we know who's going to have the most things to talk about. So, Alec, tell us what you've got coming up in the near future. And you've already told me you missed one out. So...
there's a few actually, but yeah, the coming up next week is make videos in one take. So it's the no editing required workshop that I'm running on Ecamm's channel. So running it in partnership with Ecamm. It's going to be Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday as a sort of live training sessions, and then there will be a bonus session on Friday, which will be a Zoom. And this is all about how to basically make your videos in one take with no edits using Ecamm Live. Some people think that Ecamm Live is just live streaming, and somebody once asked me, can you also record with Ecamm? And it's kind of, that's kind of what got me into it. So that's the first one. Ecamm.com/one-take is where you can sign up for that. It's completely free to attend. You will need to sign up to get access to that Zoom session as well, though, after that. I mentioned in the presentation as well about this idea of camera confidence. And so I also created a little free mini course. It's just 7 lessons. You can go and binge them, but I recommend just taking one a day because the purpose of it is to really help to try to break down this idea that we have with camera confidence and hopefully break down some of the myths about it so that by the end of it, you might be a little bit more prepared to sort of take to the camera. And there's a book coming out later on this year as well, by the way, called The Confidence Switch, which goes into a lot more depth about that. But go and grab the free course as well. And the last one is where so many people in the Zoom and in the YouTube chat as well. We've got so many of the Digital Stage Academy members like Martin and Scott as well, and so many of the great people in the chat from the Academy as well. So this is where you get access to all of the courses that I've created, but then also in the VIP of the Academy, we have office hours every week where you can come along, get your questions answered, but it's more than a Q&A, more than office hours. It's really about the sort of hive mind that we've all got in there. And we have such great deep conversations and laughs as well every week, don't we, Scott and Martin? So that's where you can find that as well. takeonetech.io/academy.
Highly recommended. If you thought there was a lot of information going on today, wait until you see that particular website and all of the offerings that go along with it. Now, when I asked Scott whether he'd got a promo, he said, well, I've only just sort of left LinkedIn. So he's coming back to speak to us later in our webinar series, along with Charlie Hills, who's an expert on AI. Make sure you don't miss that one. But Scott, where can people find you and what are you about? Well, what are you doing next?
Well, definitely find me on LinkedIn. Come on, where else would I send you, right? Feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. And that'll definitely be the best place because I'm looking to continue helping people leverage LinkedIn and particularly leverage video on LinkedIn. And so that'll be my stuff down the road as I'll be able to start talking about very soon.
Excellent. We're shooting through these now just because already over time. So I'm just banging through. So Neil, I don't think we need to talk about
crazy person right now.
We're just mentioning. Make sure you press the buttons on Stream Deck. Give people all the links to what is coming up in terms of this series, of which this is episode 1. And if you'd like to go and have a look at myself and Neil's website, which is Go Live Now Academy, you will find that there are training courses on there. You can go and book services from us as well, and a whole load of links to the forthcoming broadcast series. So lots going on. This is a fantastic start to the first session, I think. So let's just move back to the centre here while we skip a couple of other things that I'd got going on. And at this point, any final thoughts or takeaways from... let's ask Alec if you've got a takeaway from Scott, and then Scott if you've got a takeaway from Alec. How's that?
There's never been a better time to jump into video, and particularly on LinkedIn. And I've got to confess that, I felt like I was being called out slightly with with your presentation, Scott, because I have definitely been guilty of being kind of like intermittent on LinkedIn. I have bursts on it where I kind of post, and then there'll be times when I don't. So my takeaway is that I need to really get better at LinkedIn. I think I said the same when you presented at the Digital Stage Summit as well.
You did, as a matter of fact.
I'm going to get on it, and I still didn't. So there we go. I'm officially called out.
and I tell you what, my parting words, guys, if you're not following Alec, you need to. I've known Alec. Oh, excuse me. I followed Alec years ago, and it wasn't until, Alec, I think you'll even agree with this. I saw you on LinkedIn, and I sent you a personal video message.
Yep.
And you know what? You and I connected, and then you asked me to come present at your digital stage summit. Guys,
Yes.
this
Yes.
stuff works. And I'm telling you, but if you want to follow somebody and learn so much from, Alec is the guy.
Oh, thank you.
Definitely. And he's the
Well,
same in real life. We've met in real life, and to your point, Scott, there's authenticity is right here in this room because Alec is exactly the same person in
Just
real
with
life, and
legs.
hopefully.
yeah.
Just with legs. I know. Alec has got legs. It's amazing.
This is where we do the streamer live and we ask the audience, who's the most authentic and trustworthy out of the panel?
We don't have that. We don't have that available.
Yeah, okay, that's the end of the show. Right.
Yeah.
Stay in the green room, gentlemen. We'll come and talk to you in a moment, and myself and Neil are just going to close things out. And thank you so much, audience, for joining us today. We'll bring up a couple of your comments in a minute, and you'll see them on the stage. But we'll see you in the green room in a minute, guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Wow. What can we say?
So
Phenomenal.
I'm going to start adding a
Great
couple of
guests.
comments on here, whilst you can just talk everybody
Jabber
through.
away?
Tell
Well,
people.
first off, I was going to say, well, first off, thank you so much to Scott and Alec for a great series of presentations. If you haven't learned anything, it's just been amazing. So many great tips, so many questions that have come in there. And thank you to everybody that's joined us on LinkedIn, on YouTube, on Zoom. And we're just so humbled that you've all managed to join us and, more importantly, engage and ask all these wonderful questions during the show. So we will be back next month with our next webinar, as I've mentioned. And those of you that have already signed up to Luma, you're just going to get some notifications as well. We might adjust the times. It was set today so we could get both Alec and Scott on the show at the same time. So that was absolutely amazing. Martin and I go live every Thursday at 5 o'clock UK noon Eastern with our basically Tech Talk Thursday shows where we talk about all different types of tech, and you can just find us on our respective YouTube channels and things like that. So just again, thanks so much to everybody. You guys make all the difference when you join us, and we really appreciate everybody joining us today on the show. Any parting words from you, Martin? Because you've been pressing buttons like a crazy person.
I'm pressing buttons still like a
well,
crazy person. I finished pressing buttons. I'm going to press the end of show
Good,
button.
right.
Thank you everyone
Okay,
for joining us.
press the end of the show button.
I'm pressing the end of show button, and I'm muted on the next scene, hopefully, which
Okay.
is only going to last a few seconds, and then I'm going to click the end of broadcast button as